Today we are moving on to Unit 4, Standard 3, and we are going to be focusing solely on Level 1 today. Level 1 asks us to make a table and a graph given a discrete domain. Now, a discrete domain means that we have individual points, and we do not connect those points with a line. Connecting those points would indicate that every single one in between those points is part of the line, and that's not true here. Just like when we had a set of ordered pairs and we wrote down the domain and range, we wrote down individual numbers. When we have a discrete domain, we are going to be plotting individual points. So we are given the function y equals 1/2 x plus 2, and we're given the domain of -6, -4, -2, 0, and 2. In order to figure out how to plot those points, we need to find out what is the range. What is the y coordinate for each of those? So we are going to plug in -6 in for x, and then do the same for each of the other numbers in the domain. Now, this particular table is written kind of nicely. It's written in a way that gives us space to see what those numbers are plugged in. As you will see on the worksheet in a few minutes, that is not always going to be the case. There will be just an X and a Y column on the standard check. So you need to kind of wean yourself away from this. You are allowed to have work in the margins if you want, write it on a scratch piece of paper, whatever the case is, but you do want to have in the end what we call a T-chart, just an X column and a Y column. But for now, this is the example that we're going to use. We have y equals 1/2 x plus 2, and x in this case is going to be -6. So I have y equals 1/2, and for x we're going to put in -6. And then we're going to add 2. Now 1/2 times -6. Now, we should be able to do that. We know that half of -6 is -3, but I wanted to reiterate how to use your calculator to find the fraction. So we have 1, and then this button right here, N over D, changes it to a fraction for you. So 1/2, and then press your right arrow to get out of the fraction, times -6. And then we're going to add 2. And we get our y value as -1. And we put -6 into that. So we have a point now that we can plot. We can plot -6 and then down to -1 and put a dot. We're going to do that same thing for all of the others. I'm going to go ahead and start filling in what we're putting into our calculator. So we have y equals 1/2, and then we're multiplying that by -4, because that's the value given to me in the x, plus 2. For the next one, we're going to have y equals 1/2. This time we're plugging in -2. Plus 2. Then we have y equals 1/2, and we're plugging in 0 this time, plus 2. This is why we spent so much time the last few days talking about plugging in that variable or that number for x and solving it out, because it's going to be so important when we move into graphing, which is what the rest of this unit is over. So we have y equals 1/2. This time we're plugging in 2 plus 2. So, like I said, I really find it very helpful to kind of have this written for each individual number in the domain. It just kind of helps keep us clear here. So, each of those times we're going to be making an ordered pair. And for this one, we plugged in -4, then we plugged in -2, plugged in 0, plugged in 2, and we're going to type it into the calculator to see what we get. So we have 1, and there's our fraction, over 2, arrow button, times -4 plus 2. And we get 0 for our y value. Now we're going to do it again. 1, fraction button, over 2, arrow out of the fraction, otherwise you'll still be typing on the bottom, parenthesis, -2, close parenthesis, plus 2. Oh, I forgot the plus sign. Now remember, you guys can pause this video whenever you need to get caught up, but I really want you to practice putting this into your calculator. Next one, 1, fraction bar, arrow over, oops, I forgot to type the 2, arrow over, parenthesis, 0, close parenthesis, plus 2. You should see a pattern because each of the ones that we're doing today are linear. So each of your dots should make a straight line. If they don't make a straight line, you've done something wrong. Plus 2. So notice we had a pattern here, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3. That's because what we're doing right now is a linear equation. So they're all going to go into a line. Now let's go through and actually plot these points. So I have -4, 0, -2, 1. So left 2, up 1. 0, 2. So I don't need to move left or right at all, but I'm going up 2. And then 2, 3. So I'm going to move right 2 and up 3. And that's all that they're asking us to do. We just want the individual dots. We're not connecting any dots on here. So on the worksheet that you're going to pick up in just a minute, you'll be given 8 problems. The first 2 are going to have a graph that looks like this. And then the last 8 are only going to have an X column, and then they'll have a Y column. And so you'll need to put the X column in there. And you can still write down this part somewhere else if you'd like, or add a column to the side. There's plenty of room on that worksheet, and you're still typing it into your calculator to get that Y column. We just didn't give you an actual line there to write it. All right, so you have 1 through 8 that you need to finish today. There should be plenty of time left in the class. You have over 30 minutes to kind of get that done. And then tomorrow we'll move on to level 2, which if you don't understand what we're doing for level 1, you're going to be really kind of lost with level 2 because it's a lot of similar things, but we have to take it one step further. So go ahead and get started on that worksheet.